Secrets of Astrology welcomes all of you, and you are listening to Nadisutras series from Astromaster U K Jha.
Welcome friends. Today I am going to give or start a series on Nadi astrology. And today in this first part I would try to give some general introduction and hazy idea about Nadi astrology so as to enable the students to have a clear conceptual grasp of Nadi astrology. That is very important because Nadi astrology has made mythical nowadays, and people who are dealing with this are trying to project it as if it is a separate subject having alien source. They also try to establish that it is completely separate and away from Parasari astrology, having no connection from the basic principles of astrology dealt in so-called Parasari astrology. Many students who are decidedly quite intelligent have evinced more and more interest in astrology, and after completing their graduation they get attracted towards Nadi astrology because of its too many prodigious claims, and I can tell you that all those claims are vacuous. The students who get attracted towards astrology first learn the basics of astrology by learning calculation of ascendant, position of planets in the orbit, divisional chart, avastha, rasmi, various dasha systems, ashtak varga. They know about the exaltation and debilitation of planets. They are taught about the name, shape, form, caste, creed, place of living, etc. of various planets and signs. And after learning all these things, they are told that this is Parasari astrology. Most of the classical books available today in the market and the books authored by modern scholars deal with these principles only for reading any nativity and making general predictions about the native. Subsequent to this, students learn or are taught few more advanced principles under the name of Gemini astrology. There they read about, say, techniques and special information such as, I can tell you, Pad, Uppad, etc., Karkam, Sanchar, Karak, etc. These students are then told that this is Gemini astrology and it is separate and away from Parasari astrology. Predictions can be made through these principles also. But Gemini astrology is independent, away and unconnected from Parasari astrology. That is how the teachers try to convince the students. And that is where all the flaw lies. As a matter of fact, there is nothing in the Gemini astrology that cannot be applied along with the principles taught under the name of Parasari astrology. For example, you can openly, boldly, and freely apply the principles like Arud, Uppad, Argala, Charkarak, Karkam, Swams, etc., etc. Sorry, and different types of Rasi Dasa that has been dealt in Jaimini Updesh Sutra. But students are misguided that Jaimini is a separate astrology. The main reason for this is that most of the teachers themselves don't know how to make a composite study of the birth chart by applying both the so-called Parasari and Jaimini principles together. So they feel comfortable by drawing a sharp line of demarcation between Parasari and Jaimini. However, that is not only a wrong notion but also a dangerous practice which has other ramifications, and as a result of this tendency of the Vedic astrologers, many techniques and systems have now evolved under the different heads and names, and they also claim to be away from Vedic astrology, although all those have evolved from there only, but in the market they have been more saleable under various false but highly eulogized claims. The irrefutable fact is that the principles dealt in Jaimini are nothing but extended and advanced study of the principles dealt in Parasari. Had it not been so, the compilers of Birhat Parasar Hodasast or BPHS would not have included the so-called Jaimini principles in BPHS also. But despite this glaring fact, the scholars vociferously push the idea into the head of the students that Jaimini and Parasari are different and separate astrology. This is only to conceal their own ignorance and diffidence. Taking advantage of this, few scholars who have not read the so-called Parasari and Jaimini astrology learned some this type or that type of technique for making predictions, which are both mathematically unsound and conceptually distorted, have jumped into the field of Nadi astrology and are now holding the flag and trying to establish a market of Nadi astrology by telling that it is a different type of astrology having no connection with the so-called Parasari or Jaimini astrology. And unfortunately, the students who are the graduates of Parasari and Jaimini astrology get attracted after hearing all these claims. As such, now let us come to Nadi astrology. As I have told you, because this is again being presented to the students as a separate and different type of astrology. And that is really very unfortunate on the part of the wisdom of the seers who evolved this science. The gruesome fact is that Nadi astrology is a further advanced and extended application of the principles dealt in the so-called Parasari astrology, including Gemini astrology. There is nothing in Nadi astrology whose primary roots have not been touched upon in Parasari astrology, and I will explain it subsequently and in different audios in this series. Let us first know about the myth that has been woven around Nadi astrology to make it more easily saleable. Yes, I would I would love to use the word saleability, because all these confabulations are definitely guided towards making a separate market for Nadi astrology, and unfortunately most of those who are trying to propagate it and teach it have no sound basic knowledge of astrology, Vedic astrology itself. That is the reason that if you ask them, explain the principles that you are trying to teach, they get fiddled. Their befuddlement itself shows that they don't know the philosophy of what they are trying to teach, and so they try to take help from the myths and mysticism about the efficacy and validity of those principles. And this myth necessarily revolves around the explanation of the events described in the books like Bhrigunandi Nadi, Saptarishi Nadi, and in all those descriptions written on the palm leaves or otherwise, and read by the Nadi readers who have no knowledge of astrology. In southern India, they say that they are only the readers, but if they are only the readers, how they get convinced that the chart they are reading is of the man who is sitting before him? That means the man who is approaching them has to confirm that, yes, this is my chart. Such confirmation should not be there, because the reader should have at least this much wisdom to identify that a particular chart is of the man who is sitting before him. So there are too many things. I need not go into all these things, because there is a concerted and very systematic efforts are being engineered to create a structure of mysticism around Nadi astrology. The exponents of these principles take few original valid principles of Vedic astrology and also few outlandish things. These they describe as original Nadi principles. However, they have neither sound logical explanation nor any textual support in this respect. To rebut their views, few astrologers have started spreading the idea that these things have come from original and exclusive texts indited in Tamil language or Tamil scripts. As per them, only those who have access to the Tamil texts can understand the nuances of Nadi astrology. Indirectly, what they mean to imply that since you don't understand or know Tamil, so blindly accept whatever I tell. You have to listen, you need not speak, and no academic subject moves with such mentality because the teacher has to give explanation for whatever he is teaching to convince the students. And it is really an irony for these teachers that most of the students who are approaching them for learning Nadi astrology are the graduates of Vedic astrology, so called Vedic astrology or Parasari astrology, and they understand what is what. It is not so easy to convince them with any bullshit logic. And that is also a difficulty of these Nari teachers. That's why they have to take shelter under the cover of Tamil script, language and literature, etc. I can also tell you that this is merely a mythical concept that those who don't know or understand Tamil will not be able to understand Nadi astrology fully. I can tell you this because my master, from whom I learnt Nadi astrology, was himself a Tamil, and he used to say that in those olden days no recognized scholar of Vedic subjects did ever write anything or any book in any language other than Sanskrit. The matters available in the astrological books in vernacular languages were as such certainly not authored by the recognized scholars of the subject, because the recognized scholars were only writing their books in Sanskrit. When trapped on this front, these people who are erecting the structure of mysticism around Nadi astrology, who are trying to weave a net of myth around Nadi astrology, change their stand and swiftly say that these were written by the nameless rishis of Tamil land, and this is beyond the human wisdom to understand as to how those principles were formulated. I am stressing upon these points because in the subsequent discussion I will try to explain the students as to how those principles, most of those principles that is applied in the name of Nadi astrology are explainable through the basic principles of so-called Parasari astrology, and these people, these teachers of Nadi astrology are unable to explain them because they have not thoroughly read and understood Parasari astrology. They have simply made a shortcut entry into Nadi astrology after learning this type and that type of techniques, which, as I have told you, is neither mathematically sound nor conceptually correct, but is carrying the flag of having high efficacy of getting results. This getting result business is a very mythical thing again, and I would advise the students to remain away from those people. Now, before entering into the Nadi astrology, I would like to remind the students that too many things are taught in the beginning, of which the larger applications are not taught there. For example, students are taught about the description of signs, that is Rasi, and description of planets, that is Grahas. They are told about the form, the color, the shape, the nature, the place of living, the direction, the control, and so many other things about the planets and the signs. For example, it is taught that Mars is of angry disposition, red color, very energetic, or a sign like Leo is reserved type, denoting caves, highly intelligent, indicating place like Upasana Kendra, etc., etc. But these things are not explained in too much details or on application for during those graduate level courses. Now in Nadi, you will freely find the application of these things in detail, provided you can understand those things, provided you have thoroughly understood the principles dealt in Nadi astrology. The one thing, so when the word that is Rasism or Grahajam etc. are used in Nadi astrology, one has to make it clear that these Rasi description and Graha descriptions are found only in so-called Parasari astrology, and without the help of those things, it is neither possible to understand these things nor fair to teach the students these things, because that will unnecessarily mislead them and confuse them. And when teachers themselves are not thorough, then what they will understand? Because they are telling everything in the name of new technique, but no technique is universally applicable on all the charts. So our sages have not given the example charts in the books. Our earlier authors have not taken the help of birth charts while dealing with the principles, because they wanted to expand the area of consciousness, the understanding, the principle, the logic of those principles, instead of showing them in the application of those principles in a handful charts. So more important is to understand the principles. Now I would like to come to the point as to how Nadi astrology is again an extension of Parasari principles only, and there is hardly anything that can be described as special or outlandish. In Nadi astrology, we often talk high about the Jeev Grah and the Deh Grah and the Jeev Rasi and the Deh Rasi of a bhav. Now, if you understand the principle of determination of Deh Graha and Jeev Graha, you will find that this is based upon the principle of nakshatra lordship and dispositorship. Now, the nakshatra lordship and dispositorship that is being applied here for determination of Deh planet and Jeev planet of the lord of any house, you will find that those nakshatra lordship have come from the lordship shown in the Vimsotri Dasa of Parasari astrology. Since it has come from there, can we say that this concept of Deh Graha and Jeev Graha is away from Parasari and that is something new? Similarly, when we talk about the Deh Rasi and Jeev Rasi of a bhav, we take the help of divisional charts such as Nabams, Drashkan, etc. in the so-called Parasari astrology only. Now we are determining these things with the help of Parasari astrology and still telling that it has no connection with the Parasari astrology. It is something very new, something very special. What does this mean? It can have only two conclusions. Either the teacher who is telling all these things have never tried to go into the deeper part of the background of these principles and is now only trying to tell as Nadi principle. And secondly, he is not capable of understanding the philosophy behind the application of those principles. So, what I mean to say that we will explain you in different audios different principles of Nadi astrology one by one as to how that they have evolved from the basic concepts of Parasari and how that is nothing but merely an extension of those principles. So, what I mean to say that leaves cannot be separated from the root and the trunk of the branch of the tree. Thank you. More in next audio.